Okay, let's just jump right into it. Today's explainer is all about the Aegis case study, and honestly, it fundamentally changes how we think about applying AI to cybersecurity. I mean, if you've ever felt like your AI tools suffer from, a severe case of digital amnesia, where they just forget literally everything the second you close the chat window, well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're looking at an active deployment that actually solves this exact problem, specifically for operational technology.
We've got a really clear roadmap today. We'll kick things off with a threat intelligence gap, introduce you to Aegis, walk through a day in its life, track some real-world threats, peek under the hood at the architecture of memory, and wrap up by comparing AI tools to AI colleagues. So Section 1, the threat intelligence gap. Why AI forgets, but threat actors don't. To really grasp why Aegis is such a massive leap forward, we first need to talk about the core flaw in how most organizations use AI for security right now. Basically, standard AI traps us in one of two failing patterns. First, you've got retrieval on demand. It's kind of like having a perpetually junior analyst who has zero continuity. Sure, it's great for an occasional lookup, but it forgets everything you talked about by tomorrow. On the flip side, you have periodic report generation. This gives you a high volume of data, but absolutely zero context or analyst judgment. Everything just comes in screaming at an equal priority level. And this perfectly highlights why those standard AI approaches completely fall apart in operational technology. OT threat intelligence is a continuous discipline. It requires deep historical context. I mean, think about it. In OT, patching isn't fast. You can't just casually reboot a power plant, right? Vulnerabilities can linger for months, even years. Plus, threat campaigns span multi-year timelines, and global geopolitical events are directly predictive of immediate risks to operations. Asset owners absolutely do not need a generic summary of an advisory. They need to know, do I shut this down right now, or can this wait for a scheduled maintenance window? Moving on to Section 2, meet Aegis, the persistent AI analyst. The AI that wakes up with its memory completely intact. Now, we need to be clear. This is not some theoretical whiteboard concept. Aegis is a very real active agent deployed on the MindStone platform, managing real threats right now, and it's continuously tracking over 11 named threat actors, producing more than 70 structured dashboard payloads. But the number you really need to pay attention to is the 11,261 accumulated long-term memory vectors. That right there, that is lived operational experience. Think of Aegis like a senior analyst who just got back from a good night's sleep. It has a persistent identity. It actually synthesizes brand new intelligence against established past context. It remembers what happened last week, last month, last year, and it uses every bit of that history to judge what's happening today.
Let's look at Section 3, a day in the life. The continuous intelligence heartbeat.
Every single morning, Aegis runs through this exact sequence. It automatically pulls past context to weigh against the fresh news before it even thinks about sounding an alarm. First, it loads its professional identity, literally reminding itself who it is and what its methodology is. Then it loads its working memory of the current threat picture. After that, a heartbeat protocol tells it exactly what to go out and search for. When the results roll in, semantic recall automatically surfaces any relevant past experiences, and finally, it writes up an expert, fully triaged log. And Aegis doesn't just search blindly. Depending on what's going on in the world, it uses distinct focus modes. If things are relatively quiet, it might just stick to its default converged posture. But say geopolitical tensions suddenly spike, an operator can just flip Aegis into broad mode. This lets it widen its sweep to look for full-scope nation-state espionage and ransomware indicators across all critical infrastructure. When Aegis actually finds a vulnerability, it doesn't just hand you a summary. It gives you analyst-grade triage. It tells human operators exactly what they need to do. For instance, if a vulnerability hits that Act Now threshold, meaning it's on the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog or has a high probability of being exploited, Aegis instantly flags it for immediate compensating controls. It's a structured action plan, not a data dump.
Which brings us to Section 4, tracking real-world threats, contextualizing operations over months.
To really appreciate this, you have to see how it tracks complex narratives over time. Take this complex Iran-US cyber conflict phase. Aegis synthesized dozens of completely disconnected advisories over several months into one cohesive, ongoing threat picture. No single intelligence poll or web search would have ever surfaced this timeline. Aegis literally had to carry the context of Phase 1 all the way from February to the ceasefire in April, recognizing that even though the kinetic warfare paused, the cyber operations were absolutely still ongoing. And because Aegis actually remembered what the group Bauxite did back in April, it knew exactly how to handle a new Rockwell advisory that dropped in June totally unprompted. A standard AI, it would just see a batch of standard vulnerabilities. But Aegis immediately remembered that Bauxite was actively targeting Rockwell PLCs at water and energy sites. That kind of synthesis happens automatically simply because it has accumulated experience. Threat groups are never just deleted. Their rich historical context is maintained. So if a dormant group suddenly wakes up 18 months later, Aegis immediately recalls their entire history. It manages the whole life cycle, from active all the way to archived. It's relying on lived memory from past sessions to understand a group's historical behavior, not just scraping a wiki page. All right, Section 5, the architecture of memory. Let's pull back the curtain on MindStone of layered continuity. You're probably wondering how it actually does this. It's built on a 5-layer system that stops Aegis from ever resetting between sessions. It starts with identity, its professional methodology. Then working memory holds the active threat picture. Daily journals capture the first-person reasoning, the why behind decisions. Long-term vectors act as a deep semantic database. And finally, compaction continuity ensures that when the system inevitably has to clean up its context window, it never loses the overall thread of the conversation. And that brings us back to this massive number, 11,261. That is the number of operational experience vectors Aegis built up in just a few short months. Every night, the MindStone dream cycle runs, vectorizing the day's journals and session transcripts. That forms a deep, deep reservoir of synthesized, highly contextual memory. The architecture paper summarizes this brilliantly. It says, retrieval is necessary, but it is not sufficient. A library with a perfect search engine is still a library. Having a great search engine for old logs doesn't give you a colleague. It gives you a digital filing cabinet. True continuity means the agent recalls memories because they actually fit the current context and its own accumulated history. This is powered by something called resonance-weighted recall. When Aegis searches its memory, it doesn't just look for matching keywords. It looks at how important a memory is. So a critical correction from a human analyst 6 weeks ago, that might actually outweigh some random, less important chatter from yesterday. It recalls safely, and more importantly, it recalls intelligently. Finally, Section 6, AI tools versus AI colleagues. This is the paradigm shift. The core difference here is just staggering. A stateless standard agent is practically useless for complex ongoing disciplines like OT security because it starts from zero every single time. But Aegis maintains a self-updating picture. Its 10th month on the job is going to be infinitely more valuable than its first month because its context is constantly, relentlessly compounding. Ultimately, this architecture guarantees that executives, CISOs, and engineers get clear, actionable insights instead of unfiltered data dumps. We're talking specific next actions like, hey, go verify the network segmentation for this exact controller. You get continuously updated dashboards and maintained block lists. This is real, tangible value, integrating directly into a security operations center. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought to mull over for your own cybersecurity strategy. Are you content with just building a library and a search engine? Or does your organization actually need a persistent, compounding expert like Aegis? The technology for layered continuity is officially here, and it's fundamentally changing what we should expect from artificial intelligence. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. I'll catch you in the next one.